When you think of the wealthiest people ever, who comes to mind? Probably today's tech billionaires, right? Well, forget all of them. The single richest person who has ever lived had a fortune so massive it's literally impossible to calculate. We're talking about Mansa Musa, the 14th century emperor of Mali. And trust me, his story is going to completely change how you think about wealth. You know, when modern economists and historians try to even estimate Mansa Musa's fortune, they usually just give up and land on one single word: incalculable. His wealth was so far beyond anything we can wrap our heads around today that it just shatters all our modern metrics. But here's the craziest part of his story. It's not just about how much money he had. It brings up this wild question. Is it possible for one person's generosity, just giving money away, to completely wreck an entire region's economy? Well, in Mansa Musa's case, the answer is a mind-blowing yes. So how on earth did he manage that? It all boils down to one single legendary event: his pilgrimage, or Hajj, to Mecca, a journey that would literally put him and his entire empire on the world map forever. Okay, so picture this. The year is 1324. Mansa Musa, a truly devout Muslim, decides to set out from his capital to fulfill one of the most important duties of his faith. But this wasn't just any old trip. No, this was a procession of unimaginable wealth and power. I mean, the sheer scale of this caravan is just staggering. Try to imagine a moving city of 60,000 people marching across the Sahara Desert. It included 12,000 enslaved people and a train of 80 camels, each one loaded down with hundreds of pounds of pure gold. And that gold wasn't for trading, it was all just to be given away. So as his caravan passed through major cities like Cairo, he just handed out gold to the poor, he funded the construction of new mosques, he spent like there was no tomorrow. He pumped so much gold into the local economies that he completely crashed its value. The price of gold just plummeted, and it kicked off an economic crisis that lasted for more than a decade. I mean, think about that. It's the only time in history that a single individual caused regional hyperinflation through charity. This all begs the real question, right? Who was this guy, and how in the world did he get rich enough that his handouts could literally break economies? Well, his rise to the top was just as incredible as his wealth. See, he wasn't actually born to be the emperor. He kind of just became the man left in charge. The throne was supposed to belong to his predecessor, King Abu Bakr II. But these two men had totally different ambitions. The king was an explorer, completely obsessed with what lay on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. Musa, on the other hand, was all about building the empire's power and wealth right there at home. So in 1312, King Abu Bakr basically handed the keys to the kingdom to Musa, making him regent. Then he took a massive fleet of 3,000 ships and sailed off into the Atlantic to find whatever was out there. And he was never seen or heard from again. Just like that, with the king gone, Musa the regent became Mansa Musa, the emperor. And once he was on the throne, Musa didn't just get lucky. Oh no. He had a calculated, brilliant plan to turn the Mali Empire into the undisputed economic superpower of its time. His strategy was actually pretty simple: control the valuable stuff. He launched military campaigns to capture Bambouk, which had huge gold mines, and Tagaza, which controlled the salt trade. By stretching his empire from the Atlantic all the way to the Niger River, he got a lock on the two most valuable commodities in the entire region. But conquering land is one thing. Holding a giant, diverse empire together, that's a whole other challenge. Musa was a devout Muslim, but he was also a very smart politician. He knew that trying to force his religion on everyone would just lead to chaos. So instead, he allowed religious freedom, which was the key to keeping his empire stable and prosperous. So what was the actual engine driving this unbelievable fortune? It wasn't just about having a bunch of resources. It was about the masterful system he built to control them. The economy really stood on three pillars. First, gold, which was in super high demand all over Europe and the Middle East. But second, salt, which you gotta understand was just as valuable as gold back then because it was essential for preserving food. And finally, cola nuts, which were a vital supply for anyone traveling through the desert. If you controlled those three things, you basically controlled the economy of West Africa. Now, here's the part that most people get wrong. Mansa Musa didn't actually own the gold mines themselves. Those were run by local communities. His real genius wasn't in ownership. It was in something much, much smarter:
control of the system.
So here's how his brilliant system worked. Local communities would mine the gold and salt. They'd sell it to middlemen, who then traded it with merchants from outside the empire. All the while, Musa kept the exact location of the mines a top secret. But here was his stroke of genius. He slapped heavy taxes on every single one of those transactions. He didn't own the source, he owned the trade route. He just sat back and siphoned off unbelievable wealth from the flow of goods.
But as we see so often in history, when you build a great empire around one single powerful leader, you always have to ask that dangerous question: what happens when he's gone? For the Mali Empire, the fall was shockingly fast. He had an incredible 25-year reign, with that legendary pilgrimage right in the middle of it. But in 1337, Mansa Musa died, and almost immediately the massive empire he had built began to fall apart. You see, the whole system he'd built was really built around one man, him. Without his strong leadership, it just couldn't hold. His ministers got corrupt and started fighting over the money. The territories he had conquered saw their chance, and they declared independence. The golden age of the Mali Empire was over almost as quickly as it had begun.
And that brings us right back to where we started. A fortune so huge it defies numbers, built by a man who kind of stumbled onto the throne, who then controlled an economy with pure genius, and who put his empire on the map with a single, breathtaking act of faith and generosity. When you look at it, Mansa Musa's story shows us that unbelievable wealth can be created, but it can also disappear in the blink of an eye. It really leaves us with a big question about what a legacy truly is. Is it about the mountain of gold you build up for yourself? Or is it about creating something stable and lasting for the people who come after you?